Finish that thing. There's no eating in the car.
Welcome to Culture Screen, where we analyze culture. In this episode, we are summarizing the 16th episode from Season 6 of the Sopranos series titled Chasing It. The episode first aired on April 29th, 2007. In the beginning, we see Vito's son, Vito Jr., going through his rebellious stage. He tosses a glass bottle at a tombstone while his friend is sitting on top of it. Before toppling over a tombstone, he is then caught by a police officer patrolling the cemetery. Vito Jr.'s mom, Marie, then goes to Tony, practically in tears. She explains to Tony that Vito is currently being bullied at school due to his father's sexual orientation, and she adds that her neighbors have accused Vito Jr. of killing their pet cat. Marie ends her discussion with Tony by asking if he could give her $100,000 so she can relocate to Maine. She believes moving away will at least provide Vito with a different environment and will keep him away from the bullies at school. Tony tells Marie that he will consider her request, but will have to get Phil Leotardo involved, especially since they are family. Tony knows Phil was the one who took out Vito, and he feels like he has suffered financially enough from not having Vito around anymore. In the following scene, Nancy Sinatra performs for Phil in a restaurant, and she congratulates him on being the new boss of New York. Tony takes this opportunity to speak to Phil about Vito Jr. Tony expresses that Marie is requesting $100,000 from Tony. Phil says throwing money at a problem rarely ever fixes anything, but he promises to speak to Vito Jr. regardless. This scene shows us just how little the crew members actually care about each other and how in the end it's all about the money they are making for each other at the moment. Throughout the series, we hear the made men tell each other that they would provide for each other in the event their family needed support, but we see over and over again how this is simply not true. Later on, Phil takes some time to pick up Vito Jr. and he takes him to buy a sundae. While they are speaking, Vito Jr. is a bit disrespectful, and we see that all the boy truly needs is his father. Vito Jr. is rebellious because his father has been taken away from him, and Phil, of course, does not understand this, and instead Phil tells Vito that he must step up and become a man. Phil insists that Marie is suffering as a result of Vito, and we see that Phil truly does not care about Vito Jr. or whether or not he changes for the better. After Phil tells Vito what he thinks of him, he pushes him to finish the sundae so he can get on with his day. When Tony stops by Vito Jr.'s home to talk with him as well, we see he is also detached and truly does not care about Vito or his development as a young man. This scene serves as a reminder to the viewer that every boy needs a positive male role model in his life, and how those who do not have one have a higher chance of ending up like the other made guys we see in the series. Essentially, we can see how Vito is going through what perhaps a young Tony, Phil, Chris, and any of the other guys went through when they were growing up as well, without a positive male role model in their life.
What can you do? Throw money at the problem?
Remember, I am summarizing this entire series, as well as other popular works of literature, movies, and TV shows as well. Subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss the next episode or series. Let me know what you'd like me to summarize in the comments section below. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter for additional content, visit our merch store, and support us on Patreon if you can. Doing this helps my channel out tremendously. I really thank you for your support.
And I'm not losing any sleep.
In another scene, we see Tony borrow $200,000 from Hesh in the previous episode, and Hesh has to hunt Tony down just so he can pay him the $3,000 interest on the loan. We also see Tony has a gambling problem, and he is having a losing streak, and is continuing to lose thousands upon thousands of dollars on top of owing Hesh hundreds of thousands as well. While Tony is gambling, we see he wins at times, but has a hard time leaving while he is up. Tony always chooses to continue gambling, and this causes him to lose all of his money inevitably. One night when Hesh is speaking to Eli, he explains how Tony has always been horrible with money. Hesh explains that no matter how much money Tony makes, he always manages to lose or spend more and more, either through gambling or his $3 million boat, the Stugats. After Carmela sells the spec house, Tony asks to bet some of the money she earned on the Jets. Carmela refuses to bet her money and tells Tony that he is already rich and should bet his own money rather than hers. Eventually, Tony does manage to win one bet, but he does not win as much money as he would have liked to, so he blames Carmela for not giving him half of the money she made from selling her spec house. This of course leads to a massive argument, And Tony tells Carmela that the money she made from the spec house was his, since he was the one who made the down payment, purchased the materials, and leaned on the building inspector to get the house done. Tony goes as far as calling Carmela a bad businesswoman, and he tells her that as a result of her malpractice, the spec house will eventually cave in and kill the new owners. Carmela is of course devastated by Tony's words, and she runs upstairs crying. As we catch back up with Tony and Hesh, we see the two of them criticize each other when they are apart. Tony talks about how Hesh is ungrateful when he is with the guys and Dr. Melfi. Meanwhile, Hesh talks to his wife Renata about how Tony acts as if he forgot about his outstanding debt to Hesh every time he sees him, as if Hesh were a fool. Renata reminds Hesh that meeting with Tony upsets him, and he should avoid having him over right before sleeping. One afternoon, Tony and two of his guys show up at Hesh's house to pay the $3,000 weekly interest charge. Tony invites Hesh to go on a boat ride, but Hesh knows this might be a setup, and he says he cannot go because his wife is suffering from severe migraines. In another scene, we see Vito Jr. is being severely bullied at school. He ends up defecating in the showers and is expelled as a result. This leads Tony to finally agree to give Marie the $100,000 she needs to move to Maine. Instead of giving her the money, however, Tony ends up betting the $100,000 on another bet, and he loses all of the money. Afterwards, Tony calls Marie and he tells her that she should send Vito Jr. to a camp where he can be disciplined and straightened out. Tony tells her that it costs $18,000, but he will pay for it. Marie agrees, and men come to pick Vito Jr. up in the middle of the night, and they take Vito to a camp in Idaho against his will. We see Vito's mom and sister left alone and sobbing. As we catch back up with AJ, we see he is still madly in love with Blanca. AJ ends up proposing to Blanca when they are eating at a restaurant. At first, Blanca seems a bit unsure about saying yes to AJ, but she does accept his offer to marry her, although she seems reluctant. During the scene where the Soprano family is celebrating, Carmela having sold her spec house, Blanca realizes that Carmela sold it to a couple and that the home could have been given to AJ instead. At this moment, the viewer realizes that perhaps Blanca was expecting the house to be gifted to AJ for him and her to live in. This, coupled with AJ telling Blanca that he is moving up at the new pizzeria job, she finally realizes that AJ will never be able to provide for her or give her an escape from poverty. Blanca ends up breaking up with AJ, and AJ is left devastated. We see AJ is still a boy in a man's body. In the final scene, Hesh comes out of his bathroom, and when he goes to lay down next to Renata, he goes in to kiss her, and he realizes that she has passed away. Hesh then calls 911, and he is left alone. Moments later, Tony stops by with the $200,000 he owed Hesh, but Hesh no longer seems to care.
You know what? I'm going to put the whole $100K down on Philadelphia.
That was episode number 81, titled Chasing It. To watch the next or previous episode summary, click on the link in the description or at the end of this video. In the description, you will also find additional links for supporting our channel. See you on the next episode. Goodbye.
So if you think about it, big picture-wise, I'm up.
We upload new videos every week, so subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to hit the like button as well. Click the notification bell to be notified of when we upload these videos. See you on the next episode of Culture Screen.